Today, dear viewers, I am playing around with Rune Rage, a skill that I don't get used too often, but which is really fun to use when you do have time to put into practice. It is a bit random, yes, and it is not the best Silksong. It is functionally worse in every way than Threadstorm, but who cares about functionality when you can just spawn rune sigils all around that explode? It's probably the most awesome Silk skill in the game. And more than just Rune Rage being cool, the person you get it from is pretty cool. First Sinner is one of the best bosses in Silksong. She reaches heights that are not matched for anyone in Hollow Knight other than probably Grim. And really, she's the only fight in this game that I can say is very close to Grim. So that makes her special, and I figured, why not try to get to her sooner than you're supposed to? And before explaining how to do so, we've got to lay out the problem here. The reason why you can't just immediately go to First Sinner the second you get kidnapped and sent to the slab. Problem number one is this door right here. It's unlocked on my save file, but it requires the Apostate's key. And problem number two is this door, which also requires a key, but this one requires the Heretic key. Problem number three, you have to have the ability to double jump, unless you are me making a video like 3 months ago, at which point I managed to get here using beast boosting. But beast boosting is not allowed. Team Cherry does not allow fun in this world, so we can no longer get up here unless we have the double jump or we utilize some insane glitches. So, 3 roadblocks: Fade Down Cloak, Heretic's key, Apostate's key. The only roadblock that we are really going to need to skip is the Apostate's key, but I'm going to show you how to get in here without the Heretic's key, just in case you don't feel like getting kidnapped, going to prison, you know. I think there's fair enough reason to avoid going to prison, especially in Farloom. You don't want to go around these flies, they're pretty horrible. But yeah, I'm going to show you the cool way I found to get this done. And if you enjoy these videos showing how you can do things before Team Cherry expects you to, or wants you to, please subscribe to Kilroy Was Here for more Hollow Knight Silksong content. And now, let's get on with the discussion. So, the only things we need to do to set up this glitch are make it to the slab. You don't even have to get kidnapped, you just have to be here by some means. And when you're in the slab, you have to have the ability to make it through Mount Fae, because we do need the Fade Down Cloak in order to get the First Sinner, even if we can't skip all the doors to get to her. And you know, isn't Mount Fae a beautiful place, dear viewer? I mean, it gets overlooked, I think, because people are annoyed by the platforming, but I think it's really just a wonderful locale. And I think Hornet's feeling great too, isn't she? I guess not. Well, anyway, after a very relaxing jaunt through Mount Fae, as it tends to be in a normal playthrough, we make it to the top. We have our needle in, so obviously we can just play our song, summon a bird. I don't know how birds exist in Hollow Knight. I guess she's supposed to be like a moth, the Fae form, whatever her name is, but she just looks like a bird. That's just a bird. Let's be honest, dear viewer. But anyway, birds can exist, I suppose, if Team Cherry wants them to. Now that we have the ability to double jump, I may point out that I did lie about there being no prerequisites. There is one solid prerequisite to being able to skip into the First Sinner's room, and that is having the Reaper Crest, as it always seems to be nowadays. You see, because we just got the Fade Down Cloak, and because we have the Reaper Crest, all of my other crests don't really matter here, we are going to be able to use the fact that we just spawned off of a safe zone that was not a bench to activate bench storage. And what luck, a bench is literally right beneath where we get the Fade Down Cloak. It's almost like Team Cherry planned for this, even though they 100% did not plan for this, did not want this glitch to happen, and did not want me to utilize this glitch to break this game open and get to the First Sinner before going to Putrified Ducts and picking up the key they specifically made to lock her off. But the point is, over the course of me talking nonsense, I have gained the ability to swap crests on the fly, and that ability is going to be crucial to getting into the First Sinner's boss room. We've returned to the most important room of this video, the room that connects to the first Sinner's room. This room is a big vertical tunnel, essentially, which means that the first Sinner's loading zone is in exactly the same position as the loading zone I'm looking at to the right here, except far below us. That means theoretically, if we can get out of bounds here, we can just go right down and enter the first Sinner's loading zone from reverse. But how can we possibly do that, you may ask me? Well, now that we have bench storage active, we have the ability to switch crests while performing attacks with our needle. And by doing so, we essentially store the active attacks, and when we return to the crest we switch off of, the attacks go off without our input. That is extremely useful, because if we can cause an attack to bounce us off of a platform or some hitbox and push us backwards, then that stored attack will allow us to go out of bounds if we pause and stop the game from loading the loading zone. It's a bit complicated to explain, and it's certainly complicated to show, but I will do my best to show you how to perform this glitch for yourself. So for the following steps, you're going to want to follow my positioning and the timing of what I do pretty precisely. So, to begin with, you want to store a pogo, downwards pogo with the Reaper crest, and you want to stand here for every future step that we are doing. What we do next requires a map, any map, just something that lets us hold out a piece of paper and walk in this slow animation. You want to press the button to hold out your map and immediately pause. If you've done so correctly and you press your map button again, you will be able to pause with your other pause button. Once that pause has gone off, you want to switch back to your Reaper crest, stand where I am standing, and then immediately close your pause menu and open up the other pause menu at the same time. It may not be clear what just happened, but essentially we reactivated our Reaper crest pogo and paused the game on very close frames, which allowed us to push ourselves backwards and go out of bounds because the game is paused. At this point, you can hit the wall to the left of you to try and check where you are in the out of bounds world, because that's really, you're flying blind at this point. All you want to do is hit that door, but you'll notice I failed that. And something that unfortunately is very easy to happen is you can actually clip, not exactly inbounds, but out of the out of bounds state. I've clipped under the map, but I am no longer able to walk outside of the loading zone, which is where we need to be. If you get yourself into a position like this, just save and quit the game. You can redo everything very easily. Bench storage does not deactivate itself upon saving and quitting. Let me show you how it looks correctly. Everything done in the last explanation is being repeated in the exact same way. The only difference now is that we're on a lower platform. Not for any reason, I just like a change of scenery every now and then. Dear viewer, comment down below if you too like a change of scenery. I say that as the man making my 50th Hollow Knight Silksong video. There's a lot of scenery in this game to change through. But as I've been talking, I've done the glitch correctly, and I was out of bounds there for a second, but it's very easy to hit the loading zone once you know where you are. It is not easy to escape this location, and in fact I initially created this video with the hopes of it being another softlock, because I'm a softlock lover, but just because it failed at being a softlock doesn't mean it failed at its real purpose, which is actually getting to First Sinner without bricking your save file forever. So, there's pros to both approaches, and you can get all the rosary beads in this room for free. And because we've gotten past this door, we've pretty much bypassed every lock meant to keep us out of the First Sinner's room. We have the ability to double jump. If you didn't have the ability to double jump, you would have just had to save and quit at this point, which is why I said to get that first. And at this point, I'm just going to show off the amazingness that is the First Sinner. Now, in case you didn't know, dear viewer, when you have bench storage activated, simply by pausing the game, you get fully healed. But this fight is amazing enough that I don't want to rely on cheap tricks like that. I'm going to do this fight legitimately. 100% legit with the Hunter's Crest. Now, let me show you what that looks like. Now, I may warn you, I am not the best Hollow Knight Silksong player ever, so don't expect this gameplay to be anything special. But it will be enjoyable, because this boss is enjoyable. See, I did as I promised. I did not use bench storage for any cheap healing at any point in that fight. And dear viewer, if you're having trouble with First Sinner, that fight should have shown you don't need to be the best at Hollow Knight Silksong to beat this boss. Just treat it like a dance, have fun, and really enjoy the process. The process is pretty much everything with fights like this. Now normally I would skip through this whole dream section, however there is a really cool discovery that I wanted to show you all, something that I didn't even discover until I made 2 separate videos on the First Sinner. So I remember in my first playthrough, I thought this whole dream section was very difficult. It seems 100% designed for you to have Fade Down Cloak, which makes sense, other than the beast boosting in the past patches of this game. There really was never any intended way to get to First Sinner without having the ability to double jump. So, near when this game came out, I was thinking, hey, maybe if I get to First Sinner without having Fade Down Cloak, I'll be able to softlock Hornet in this memory. Because if you save and quit when you're in these memory sections, you just reload in the memory sections. And if you try to escape them, when you don't have the movement abilities to escape them, obviously you're going to be trapped in here forever. And yet, when I made a video on that subject a couple months ago, I did not see this platforming section. I saw this platforming section. Yes, you are seeing this correctly, dear viewer. Team Cherry specifically added in a separate map after the First Sinner boss fight, in case you manage to get to her without the ability to double jump. They put in softlock prevention for something that is only really achievable using bugs in Hollow Knight Silksong. And I mean, bravo to them for thinking of that eventuality. Maybe there was a past point in time where the First Sinner wasn't meant to be locked behind the ability to double jump, but as things stand in the game right now, even if you get here without the ability to double jump, you are not going to be softlocked because Team Cherry thought about that. And I just think that's pretty darn cool. Now that we've finished our memory, we've come out with Rune Rage and a pretty great experience fighting a fantastic boss in Hollow Knight Silksong, Team Cherry's magnum opus. Now, the only thing we still have to worry about is how the heck we're going to escape from a locked door that we never unlocked. Hornet is stuck in the wall and she's screaming eternally. Well, fortunately for us, bench storage is a tricky thing, and it does not get activated easily. So even after going through all of that, we still have it activated. And while we mostly use bench storage to pogo off of surfaces, something else gives you ricochet in Hollow Knight Silksong: walls. So you can perform the exact same glitch I did to get into this room to knock yourself out of this room. By performing it on the backside of the locked heretic door, we can push ourselves out of bounds once again. Now, that wouldn't seem as helpful because it doesn't let us go back up to the entrance, but fortunately for us, there is a hidden room underneath this door. A room that will spawn us into rocks forever if we don't break them. but a room nonetheless. So at this point, we can use this tiny little secret area, which is pretty pointless if I'm being honest. It has a couple of snitch flies, I think, and that's pretty much it. But for our purposes, this room is incredible because it loops back around to that long hallway, that long vertical tunnel that we need to get out of this area. And now that we've bypassed the heretic door, it doesn't really even matter that we don't have the key for the apostate door, because while that key is necessary to get into this area to begin with, that key is not necessary to leave the long corridor. You see, we can just go back in here, we've escaped the room, we've made it to the outside, and there is a shortcut switch that we already hit to let us escape back into the slab proper. So we have essentially deleted any reason to use the apostate key to not only get ourselves into the first sinner's room, but also to get ourselves out of it. And now we can escape to the citadel proper and test out our new silk skill that we got. Let's see if it's strong enough to kill 2 basic enemies by hitting them with thousands of runes. Couldn't even kill one. Well, yeah. Team Cherry, if you're making any more patches to this game before the DLC comes out, can you please buff this thing? It doesn't even need to be overpowered, I just want it to not be the worst silk skill in the game. But besides that, I hope everyone who was watching this video enjoyed this experience, and if you want to do it yourself, please do so. Have a good day, everyone.